First impressions form quickly, often before a single word is spoken. In places like luxury hotels, where appearance and behavior are closely watched, people are judged almost instantly. The way someone dresses, the language they speak, their accent, even their body language, all contribute to how others perceive them. In this story, the Chinese millionaire walks into the hotel expecting a smooth and respectful experience, but what he encounters instead is hesitation and confusion. The staff does not recognize who he is, and more importantly, they do not understand him. Their reaction is not openly rude, but it reveals something subtle and powerful, uncertainty shaped by assumptions. When people cannot immediately categorize or understand someone, they often fall back on quick judgments. These judgments are not always intentional, but they influence behavior in noticeable ways. The staff may assume he is difficult to communicate with, or that helping him will take extra effort, which creates a gap between the service expected and the service delivered. This gap is where bias quietly operates. It does not need harsh words to exist. It shows up in small delays, in confused expressions, in the lack of confidence when addressing someone who seems different. First impressions are often based on incomplete information, yet they carry significant weight. In this situation, the millionaire's identity, status, and expectations are all overlooked simply because communication fails at the beginning. The staff's inability to understand his language becomes a barrier, but it is also a reflection of how quickly people define others based on what they see and hear in the first few moments. These early judgments shape the tone of the entire interaction. Instead of a welcoming atmosphere, there is tension. Instead of confidence, there is uncertainty. The millionaire, who is used to being understood and respected, suddenly finds himself in a position where he is misunderstood and possibly underestimated. This shift highlights how fragile first impressions can be, especially when they are influenced by cultural and linguistic differences. It also shows how easily people can be placed into the wrong category when others rely too heavily on surface-level cues. The hotel staff may not intend to treat him differently, but their actions suggest discomfort, and that discomfort changes the dynamic. First impressions do not just affect how others see us, they also affect how we are treated. In many cases, people are given more attention, patience, or respect based on how easily they fit into expected norms. When someone does not fit those expectations, even slightly, the response can become less certain and less accommodating. This moment in the story reflects a common real-world experience where individuals are judged before they are fully understood. It reminds us that first impressions are powerful but often incomplete. They are shaped by personal experiences, cultural familiarity, and sometimes unconscious bias. When people rely too heavily on these initial judgments, they risk overlooking important qualities in others. The Chinese millionaire is not lacking in status or importance. Yet in that moment, none of that is visible to the people around him. What they see instead is someone they cannot easily communicate with, and that becomes the defining factor of their interaction. This reveals how quickly perception can override reality. It also raises an important point about awareness. Recognizing that first impressions can be misleading is the first step toward more thoughtful and respectful interactions. When individuals take a moment to pause and look beyond initial assumptions, they create space for better understanding. In environments that prioritize service and professionalism, this awareness becomes even more important. It ensures that every guest, regardless of language or background, is treated with equal respect and attention. Language is more than a tool for communication. It is a bridge that connects people across cultures, experiences, and identities. In environments like a luxury hotel, where smooth interaction is expected, the ability to communicate clearly often determines the quality of service. When the Chinese millionaire arrives and begins to speak in his native language, the barrier becomes immediately visible. The staff, trained to handle guests with professionalism, suddenly find themselves unable to respond in a meaningful way. Words fail, and with them, confidence begins to slip. This moment shows how deeply language influences not only understanding, but also power within a situation. The person who can communicate effectively often holds control, while the one who cannot may feel isolated, regardless of their actual status or importance. The millionaire, despite his wealth and influence, is placed in a vulnerable position simply because his language is not understood. This shift highlights how language can temporarily redefine roles, placing someone powerful into a situation where they seem dependent or overlooked. On the other side, the staff, who are usually confident in their roles, begin to lose control of the interaction. Their inability to understand creates hesitation, and hesitation weakens their authority in that moment. Language, in this sense, becomes a key that unlocks or restricts access to connection, respect, and efficiency. When communication flows smoothly, trust builds quickly. When it breaks down, even simple tasks become complicated. The tension in the scene grows not because of conflict, but because of disconnection. Each failed attempt to understand the millionaire adds to the discomfort, making the situation more visible to others around them. This is where language reveals its true power. It is not just about exchanging information, it shapes perception. A person who speaks fluently in a widely understood language is often seen as more approachable, more competent, and easier to engage with. In contrast, someone who speaks a less familiar language may be unfairly viewed as difficult or distant, even if that is not the case. These perceptions are not always conscious, but they influence behavior in subtle ways. The staff may try to help, but their uncertainty affects how they interact, creating a gap that grows with each passing moment. Then, when the maid steps forward and begins to speak fluent Chinese, the entire dynamic changes instantly. The same words that once caused confusion now create clarity. The millionaire is no longer isolated. He is understood. His tone, his needs, and his expectations are finally recognized. In that instant, language restores balance. It brings back dignity, confidence, and connection. The maid, who may have been overlooked moments before, suddenly becomes the most important person in the room. Her ability to speak the language transforms her role completely. She is no longer just part of the background. She becomes the bridge that connects two sides. This shift demonstrates how language can elevate a person's position without changing anything else about them. It shows that communication skills are a form of power that is often underestimated. The ability to understand and be understood creates influence, even in unexpected situations. It also reveals how quickly perceptions can change when communication barriers are removed. The staff, who were once unsure, can now proceed with confidence because the gap has been filled. The millionaire, who was momentarily disconnected, is now fully present in the interaction. Language, in this moment, does more than solve a problem. It reshapes the entire atmosphere. It turns confusion into clarity and tension into cooperation. This example reflects a broader truth about human interaction. In a diverse world, the ability to connect across languages is not just a skill. It is a strength that carries real impact. It allows people to move beyond assumptions and engage with one another on a deeper level. When language barriers are broken, understanding follows, and with understanding comes respect. Underestimation often begins quietly, shaped by what people see on the surface rather than what truly defines a person. In this situation, appearance plays a powerful role in how individuals are perceived and treated. The Chinese millionaire, despite his wealth and status, does not immediately receive the level of recognition or respect one might expect. At the same time, the black maid, who is part of the hotel service staff, is likely seen as someone with limited influence or authority within that environment. These assumptions are not spoken out loud, yet they exist in the way people carry themselves, in who is given attention, and in who is overlooked. Society has long conditioned people to associate certain appearances with certain roles, creating expectations that are not always accurate. When individuals are judged based on these expectations, they are often placed into categories that limit how others interact with them. The millionaire is underestimated not because of his behavior, but because the staff cannot immediately understand him, and that lack of communication reduces their perception of him in the moment. Similarly, The maid is underestimated because of her position and appearance, which may lead others to assume she has little to contribute beyond her assigned duties. This dual underestimation highlights how easily people can be misjudged when surface-level impressions take priority over deeper understanding. It also shows how these assumptions can exist simultaneously, affecting different individuals in different ways within the same setting. The environment of a luxury hotel adds another layer to this dynamic, as it is a space where status and presentation are highly visible. Guests are often treated based on how closely they match expectations of wealth or importance, while staff members are viewed through the lens of their roles. This creates a structured hierarchy where people are quickly sorted into positions of perceived value. When someone does not fit neatly into these expectations, confusion can arise, and that confusion can lead to underestimation. The millionaire's inability to communicate in the dominant language disrupts the usual pattern, causing the staff to hesitate and, perhaps unconsciously, to lower their expectations of him. At the same time, the maid's presence in a service role may cause others to overlook her potential entirely. What makes this situation significant is the moment when these assumptions are challenged. The maid's ability to speak fluent Chinese directly contradicts the expectations placed upon her. In that instant, the perception of her changes, not because she has changed, but because others are forced to see beyond their initial assumptions. Her knowledge and skill reveal a depth that was not immediately visible, demonstrating how misleading appearances can be. This moment also reflects a broader reality in which many individuals carry abilities and experiences that are not obvious at first glance. When people rely too heavily on outward appearance to judge capability, they risk missing these hidden strengths. The concept of underestimation is not limited to one group or one situation. It is a common experience that can affect anyone who does not fit expected norms. It can create barriers that limit opportunities and influence how people are treated in both subtle and obvious ways. In this case, the underestimation of both the millionaire and the maid creates a situation where the true balance of power is temporarily obscured. The millionaire appears less influential than he is, while the maid appears less capable than she truly is. When the truth is revealed, the contrast becomes clear, showing how inaccurate those initial judgments were. This shift serves as a reminder that people are often more complex than they appear. It encourages a deeper level of awareness, where individuals take the time to look beyond surface details and consider the possibility that their assumptions may be incomplete. By recognizing the limits of appearance-based judgment, it becomes possible to create more respectful and accurate interactions, where individuals are valued for their true abilities rather than the roles or images they present at first glance. Stereotypes often operate in the background of everyday interactions, shaping expectations without being openly acknowledged. They are built over time through repeated ideas about how certain people are supposed to behave, what roles they are expected to fill, and what abilities they are assumed to have. In a setting like a luxury hotel, these stereotypes can quietly influence how both guests and staff are viewed. People may expect a wealthy guest to look a certain way, speak a widely understood language, and carry themselves in a familiar manner. At the same time, they may expect staff members, especially those in roles like cleaning or maintenance, to have limited influence or specialized skills outside their immediate duties. These assumptions create a framework that guides behavior, often without anyone realizing it. When reality does not match these expectations, the result can be confusion or hesitation. This is exactly what happens in the moment when the Chinese millionaire struggles to communicate. The situation does not align with what the staff expects, and their uncertainty reflects a deeper reliance on stereotypes. They are not prepared for a scenario where a guest does not fit the usual pattern, and that lack of preparation reveals how strongly these expectations are embedded. At the same time, the presence of the black maid is interpreted through another set of assumptions. She is seen within the narrow scope of her role, and her potential is not considered beyond that. The idea that she could possess a skill as specific and valuable as fluency in Chinese is not part of the immediate expectation. This is how stereotypes limit perception. They create boundaries around what people believe is possible, often excluding realities that fall outside those boundaries. The turning point comes when these expectations are disrupted in a single, unexpected moment. When the maid steps forward and begins to speak fluent Chinese, the established assumptions are instantly challenged. The scene shifts from confusion to clarity, but more importantly, it forces everyone present to reconsider what they thought they knew. The maid's action does more than solve the communication problem. It breaks the stereotype that had defined her in the eyes of others. This kind of moment is powerful because it exposes the gap between assumption and reality. It shows that the categories people rely on are often too narrow to capture the full range of human ability and experience. The surprise that follows is not just about the language itself, but about the realization that someone has been underestimated. This realization can be uncomfortable, as it highlights the limits of one's own perspective. It reveals how easily people can overlook value when they rely on simplified ideas about others. Breaking stereotypes in such a visible way creates a shift in awareness. It encourages people to question their initial judgments and to become more open to unexpected possibilities. In environments that depend on interaction and service, this shift can lead to more thoughtful and inclusive behavior. It allows individuals to move beyond automatic assumptions and engage with others in a more genuine way. The moment also carries a broader message about the importance of recognizing individuality. Every person has a unique set of experiences, skills, and knowledge that cannot be fully understood through appearance alone. When stereotypes are challenged, it creates space for those qualities to be seen and appreciated. This not only changes how one person is viewed, but can also influence how similar situations are approached in the future. The impact of breaking a stereotype is not limited to a single interaction. It can reshape expectations over time. It reminds people that their assumptions are not always reliable and that there is always more to learn about those around them. In this way, unexpected moments become opportunities for growth, pushing individuals to expand their understanding and to approach others with greater curiosity and respect. Respect and dignity are often spoken about as core values in service environments, yet the way they are practiced can vary depending on subtle perceptions. In a luxury hotel, where professionalism is expected at every level, the idea is that every guest should receive equal attention and care. However, in reality, the way people are treated can sometimes be influenced by how easily they fit into expected patterns. When the Chinese millionaire arrives and struggles to communicate, the situation begins to test this principle. The staff may still be polite, but the uncertainty in their responses can create a sense of distance. Respect is not only about being courteous, it is also about making someone feel understood and valued. When communication breaks down, that feeling can weaken, even if no one intends for it to happen. The millionaire's experience in that moment reflects how dignity can be affected not by direct disrespect, but by the absence of effective connection. At the same time, the role of the maid brings another layer to the idea of respect. Service roles are often structured in a way that places certain positions in the background, making their contributions less visible. People in these roles are expected to perform their duties quietly and efficiently, without drawing attention to themselves. This expectation can sometimes lead to their abilities being overlooked or underestimated. The maid, in this case, represents someone whose presence may not be immediately recognized as significant within the larger setting. Yet, her actions reveal how important every role can be when it comes to maintaining true professionalism and care. When she steps forward and speaks fluent Chinese, she does more than assist with communication. She restores a sense of dignity to the interaction. The millionaire is no longer left in a position of confusion or discomfort. He is acknowledged and understood. This moment highlights how respect is closely tied to effort. It is not enough to follow routine procedures. Genuine respect often requires going beyond what is expected to meet someone where they are. The maid's willingness to step outside the boundaries of her role demonstrates a deeper level of commitment to service. It shows that dignity is upheld not only through formal positions, but through individual actions. Her contribution also challenges the idea that influence is limited to those in higher positions. In that moment, she becomes the most important person in the room, not because of her title, but because of her ability to make a meaningful difference. This shift emphasizes that respect should not be tied to hierarchy. Every individual, regardless of their role, has the capacity to contribute in valuable ways. When environments recognize this, they become more inclusive and effective. The situation also reflects how easily dignity can be overlooked when assumptions come into play. If the staff had considered the possibility that someone among them could bridge the communication gap, the outcome might have been different from the start. This suggests that respect involves awareness, not just behavior. It requires an understanding that value can exist in unexpected places. By acknowledging this, people can create interactions that are more balanced and considerate. The maid's action serves as a reminder that respect is not defined by position, but by how individuals treat one another in moments that matter. It is demonstrated through attentiveness, empathy, and the willingness to act when needed. In service environments, these qualities are essential for maintaining dignity, not only for guests but for staff as well. When individuals feel respected, they are more likely to engage with confidence and contribute fully. This creates a positive cycle where respect reinforces itself through actions and responses. The moment in this story captures how a single act can restore balance and highlight the importance of treating every person with equal consideration. It shows that dignity is not something that can be assumed. It must be actively maintained through thoughtful interaction and genuine understanding. Quiet confidence often goes unnoticed because it does not demand attention. It does not rely on loud gestures, titles, or outward displays of authority. Instead, it shows itself through calm actions, steady presence, and the ability to respond effectively when the moment calls for it. In this situation, the black maid represents that kind of confidence. She is not the center of attention when the problem begins. She is part of the background, carrying out her responsibilities without recognition or expectation of influence. While others hesitate and struggle to manage the communication barrier, she observes. Her awareness of the situation reflects a level of understanding that goes beyond her assigned role. Quiet confidence allows a person to step forward not out of pressure, but out of readiness. When she chooses to speak, there is no dramatic build-up, no need to prove herself beforehand. Her actions speak for her. The moment she begins speaking fluent Chinese, the atmosphere shifts instantly. What was once confusion becomes clarity, and what was once tension becomes relief. This transformation highlights the strength of confidence that does not rely on external validation. It shows that true capability does not need to announce itself in advance. It reveals itself naturally when it is needed. The impact of her action goes beyond solving the immediate problem. It changes how everyone in the room perceives her. The same person who may have been overlooked moments earlier is now seen as essential. This shift demonstrates how quickly perception can change when ability is revealed. It also emphasizes that confidence is not about how others see you at first, but about what you are able to do when the opportunity arises. Quiet confidence carries a sense of control that does not depend on recognition. It is rooted in self-awareness and preparation. The maid did not learn the language for this specific moment, yet her skill becomes crucial when the situation demands it. This suggests that personal growth and effort, even when unseen, can have a powerful impact later on. It also shows that confidence built on real ability is more lasting than confidence based on appearance or status. The people who initially held visible authority in the situation begin to rely on her, showing how quickly roles can shift when competence becomes clear. This moment reflects a broader idea about influence. It is not always the loudest or most visible person who makes the biggest difference. Sometimes, it is the person who remains steady, attentive, and prepared who creates the greatest impact. Quiet confidence allows individuals to navigate situations without being overwhelmed by pressure or doubt. It enables them to act with clarity, even when others are uncertain. This quality is especially important in environments where unexpected challenges can arise. The maid's response shows that confidence does not need to compete for attention. It simply needs to be present and ready to act. Her calm approach also affects the way others respond. Instead of adding to the tension, she reduces it. Instead of creating more confusion, she brings direction. This ability to influence the emotional tone of a situation is a key aspect of quiet confidence. It creates stability in moments that might otherwise feel uncertain. The scene becomes an example of how one person's composure can shift the experience for everyone involved. It also highlights the importance of recognizing and valuing this kind of confidence in others. People who do not seek attention are often overlooked, yet they may hold skills and strengths that are essential when challenges arise. By paying closer attention to these individuals, environments can become more balanced and responsive. The maid's role in this moment is not defined by her position, but by her ability to act with purpose and clarity. Her confidence does not change who she is. It reveals who she has been all along.